So a basic principle at Peace at Home Parenting, and everything we're teaching you is based on research, is we want every parent to think of themselves as their child's calm center. If you're arguing with your child about meditating, you're not teaching them to be a calm center, and you're not being their calm center. Accepting their choices, recognizing where you have influence and where you're powerless is part of being your child's calm center. If your brain is stressed, it will affect your child's brain. We mirror each other's emotions back and forth. It doesn't just go one way. The researchers in neuroscience are telling us if someone around us is very emotionally upset, our brains get emotionally upset. And it's very important to recognize this because when your 3-year-old has a meltdown and just goes bonkers, your brain biologically gets lit up and you get stressed. If you don't know that, if you don't recognize the symptoms, if you don't have a brain calming practice, you will start to talk louder. You will start to get more intense. You may be saying all the right things. You may be doing all the right behaviors, but you won't help your child calm down if you can't calm your own brain first. So recognize that your children's upset will upset your brain biologically and find ways to calm your brain. That is how you're going to help your kids calm down. The first thing I do when I'm with my granddaughter and she's all ballistic is I take a deep breath down to my belly. My belly expands. It's called a full diaphragmatic breath. And she does it very often when I do it. We mirror each other. So, and even if she doesn't, I'm going to focus on staying calm before I open my mouth or take an action. You can't force kids to calm down. You can't threaten punishment. That just makes them more stressed. Kids aren't choosing to be stressed. It's what's happening for them biologically. And they can't choose to calm down if they don't have tools and if you don't calm down yourself. The way we help kids calm down is by how we speak to them, whatever tone of voice, whatever words you use, that's going to become their inner voice. That's how they're going to talk to themselves. We have to teach them self-awareness, helping them notice when they're stressed, saying to them, your little shoulders are up about your ears. You must be very upset. Your hands are in little fists. You must be very tense right now. Just helping them notice their own physical sensations and helping them name their emotions. You can create a cool down place in your house. Some parents just get a beanbag chair and maybe some nice music or some books or certain blankets or stuffed animals. And this is a place where the child can go to calm down, where you can go to calm down. Some parents create it with their kids, and kids want coloring books there, and you create a cool down place where you go individually or together. And learn some brain calming practices. When your child is in distress, calm your brain, speak softly, turn off technology, use gentle touch, and teach your child brain calming practices. I have some handouts with different kinds of practices. And of course, teaching meditation is a powerful brain calming practice. We have lots of research on that. You can help your self-regulation. We call it self-regulation, regulating our stress, and co-regulation when we're helping kids regulate their stress. If you're under constant extreme stress, you're not going to parent effectively. And if you're constantly exposed to other people's stress, it's going to affect your parenting. So a question you want to ask yourself is, how well am I managing my own stress? That's like when you're on an airplane, they say, put your oxygen mask on first. This is the first question. If you want to help your kids self-regulate, you have to be self-regulating yourself. Any questions or comments?
Right now, no questions, Ruth. You can go ahead.
So I want to talk about positive discipline because this is a source of enormous stress for parents. And how can we do discipline consciously? Many of us grew up with discipline practices that were either ineffective or harmful to our relationship with our parents or to self-worth. And these practices get passed on, and we keep doing them, even though they really don't work very effectively. So I want to talk about some myths about how we manage behavior. And this actually comes from mountains of research. The first myth is that punishment will change bad behavior. We often try to think of the thing to take away from the kid or threaten them so we get them to do what we want. From time to time, you can threaten your kids and they will comply. Sometimes they're following directions because you've frightened them into it, or sometimes they're following directions just because they don't want the consequence. But the research is you don't get long-term improved behavior change with punishment. So you want to keep in mind that you want another approach to managing behavior. Sometimes we have to use small consequences. If your child is at the dinner table and she's flinging food all over the dinner table, you need to remove her plate. But you don't need to yell at her, threaten her, or send her to her room or tell her she can't have dinner. That's punishment. We want to do a mild consequence, remove the plate. More reminders lead to better behavior. This is another myth. Nagging doesn't work. You've tried it, give it up. Explaining to your child why a behavior is wrong will lead them to stop that behavior. I'm betting that parent who talked about the healthy food has been explaining and explaining and explaining, and it's not really affecting behavior. You can tell your child once why something's important to you. You can do a little research together about stuff and learn together, but those lectures really aren't useful. And sometimes parents think my child's just being manipulative. So she whines to get her way. We go shopping and she whines to get a candy in the checkout aisle. Why is she manipulating me this way? So here's the deal. Children are not manipulative. They're extremely good observers of your behavior. You're their whole world. If a child is whining in the checkout aisle for a candy, I can be pretty sure that 1 in 5 or 10 times, the parent just goes, okay, fine, here. The other 4 or 9 times, the parent ignores the whining or says to the child, stop whining, we're not getting candy today, forget it, no, quit, cut it out. Maybe they raise their voice, maybe they threaten, if you don't stop whining, you're going to go to your room. All that stuff is reinforcing the whining. Kids aren't manipulative, they use strategies that work. If you intermittently reward a strategy, that strategy will continue forever. If you have a kid that cries when they don't get their way, my guess is once in a while you give into the crying. Timeout improves behavior. It's okay to take some time out for yourself. It's okay to ask a child to move to a different place, but just isolating them in their rooms really, really doesn't help. My daughter actually, when I was writing an article about this, went and got her journal from when she was 8 years old. And in the journal, it said, Dear Diary, I really, and she wrote the really about 2,000 times, hate my mother. And she did this during a timeout. And she said, this is what I did during timeout. And she probably got timeouts 15 times in her whole life. I didn't use it very often. It's another form of punishment, and it isn't terribly effective. It's not terrible. And if you use it from time to time because you're going bonkers and you need your kid to be in their room for a minute, fine. But don't think it's going to improve behavior. The real story is that you can get rid of almost any misbehavior by rewarding the opposite of the misbehavior. You can get rid of almost any misbehavior by rewarding the opposite of the misbehavior. And this is also based on years and decades of research. The best reward for positive behavior is your attention. If you don't remember anything else I say today, remember this. You're going to get more of whatever behavior you give attention to in your children. You're going to get more of whatever behavior you give attention to in your children. So here's the deal. Most parents, after kids are about 18 months old, pay more attention to misbehavior than to positive behavior. Around the time of 18 months, they're traveling around, they're exploring, they're searching and destroying, they're getting into difficulties and getting into dangerous situations. Don't run, don't touch that, don't do that. And that starts and it doesn't end. And what happens is, if you did a time study on your week with your child or your last 24 hours with your child, you likely spent 60, 70, 80% of the time correcting, directing, criticizing, threatening, punishing, instead of affirming and talking about the behavior you wanted. You gave them an ice cream cone for misbehavior because their brains are built to seek connection with you, to seek your attention, and they'll take criticism, threatening. So a classic example is 2 kids are playing in the other room. You're glad they're finally playing. You go into the kitchen to make dinner and somebody picks up a toy and throws it at the other child. You run in. What are you doing? Can you guys just calm down? You go to your room. You sit on the couch. That's it. You're always arguing. And you walk out. What just happened? They were playing nicely. Nobody showed up. The truck getting thrown, mom or dad showed up. They were interesting. They were expressive. They got lots of contact. That was an ice cream sundae for misbehavior. What we want you to do is walk in when they're playing together and say, I love when you two guys play together, and give them both a big hug. Show up for the behavior you want. You're going to get more of whatever you bring attention to. And we want you to bring attention to the opposite of one or two misbehaviors to really improve behavior. So what does that mean? So if your child generally ignores your directions, you want to bring attention to any time they follow directions, and they don't have to do it perfectly. We're looking for progress, not perfection. You ask your child to straighten up their room, and they pick up their books and they straighten up the bed, and there's still clothes on the floor. What do? You walk in and you say, wow, you got all the clothes in the hamper. That's terrific. And your bed's made. That's wonderful. Big hug. Ruffle their hair. Do a cheer. Get crazy. The more enthusiastic you are for the opposite of misbehavior. We didn't talk about the books that are left on the floor, or whatever was left on the floor. I don't even remember the story I told. We didn't talk about what was left on the floor. We talked about what got into the hamper. You want to bring enthusiastic attention to the opposite of the misbehavior. We're going to ignore the negative attention. If you have a kid who's aggressive, you're going to talk about safe hands. If you have kids who fight, you're going to talk about they picked a TV show together and get really excited. You want to set the stage for cooperation, please, in a respectful tone of voice. I'm going to take the question in a minute.
Yeah.
I just want to get through this part, but I'll come back. Hold on. So you want to set the stage for
before starting this slide. I'm gonna ask you one question. I'm sorry for the interrupting you.
You want to set the stage for cooperation. You want to remain calm and respectful no matter what. Avoid nagging, threatening. This is all going to help with cooperation. What's the question, Shruti?
Yeah, the question is, I have a 3-year-old kid who sometimes bites and hits my 3-month-old kid. Please advise how we can address this situation.
I have a 4-year-old granddaughter and a 1-year-old grandson, so I feel your pain. What I noticed when my daughter came home from the hospital with the new baby, my husband was saying then she was 3, he said, have a quiet voice, a new baby. And my daughter said to my husband, because she now knows parenting, everything we know plus, she said, don't correct her, don't be negative. Just try to focus on the way she's being with the baby properly. And from that day, whenever the 3-year-old was nice to the baby, talking nicely, and this is the same principle we're teaching here, my daughter would say, thank you for your quiet voice. Thank you for your soft touch. You're such a good big sister. She constantly described her being positive. If she hit the baby, which she certainly did, I was just recently with them, and she tipped the baby over. He was sitting down on the floor and she just tipped him over. He fell back crying. But her negative behavior has decreased significantly, and her positive behavior has increased. She's also 4 now. But the basic principle is, if she does something wrong, you just remove the baby. You don't talk about it. You don't make a big deal. We actually have a class to help young siblings get along together. If you email me at info@peaceathomeparenting, we'll talk about that. But what you want to do is be very enthusiastic when she's being kind with the baby, and when she has a problem with the baby, you remove the baby and you help her to calm down. Let's take some breaths together. Let's do some calming together. And you can also ask her to be a helper. So you can say to her, can you be my big helper and go get a diaper for me? What a big helper. Can you get a toy for the baby? So you're engaging her as the big sister, the big helper. Remember, her beloved parent, her most beloved, has been stolen away by another. And it's just like, your husband came home with a new wife. It's really hard. And they're grieving and they're struggling, and they're also excited about the new baby. And remember, 3s have more emotions than thinking. They sometimes get swamped with emotion. They just want to get this kid out of the way. So help them stay safe, help them stay calm, and be very positive about their positive behavior. So the first step in using this application is to try to ignore misbehavior whenever possible. Remember, attention is a reward. So if your child is sitting at dinner and says, I hate string beans, you don't have to respond. You don't have to do anything. You can turn to another kid and say, what are you looking forward to today? Just ignore complaining, moping, whining, crying about stuff. You can just ignore it. Our 15-year-old, he's having a meltdown. He's in his room throwing stuff around, saying you're the worst parent in the world because you can't use his video games. It's okay. Ignore misbehavior whenever possible because your attention keeps it going forever. The second step is to give your child some uninterrupted positive attention every day. We encourage 20 minutes, one parent, one child, no screens, no technology. Just focus your calm, positive attention on them. Have fun, be playful, put your teaching agenda aside, and just enjoy them. Fill up their attention bank, and then they're less likely to do misbehavior for attention. And the third step is give attention to the behavior you want. Again, you're going to get more of whatever behavior you pay attention to. And praise is a very powerful form of attention. And there's a certain kind of praise that we want you to use. You're going to pick out one or two misbehaviors. This is a whole class. We have a whole class called Positive Discipline for Peace at Home. So I'm giving it to you really quick. But you want to pick out one or two misbehaviors, like not following directions. And anytime your child follows directions to any degree, you're going to use the praise that works. You're going to get close to the child. You're going to be super enthusiastic. The research is the more enthusiastic you are, the more likely the child's going to give you this positive behavior again in the future. You're going to use specific positive words. You're not going to say, thanks for not hitting your baby brother. You're going to say, look at you. You brought the baby his bottle. Oh, what a sweet, sweet sister you are. And you ruffle her hair or give her a thumbs up or do a mommy dance. A nonverbal reinforcer. You're only going to do it after the positive behavior, the opposite of that misbehavior of hurting him. And you're going to do it every time. And you're going to do it immediately after she does the positive behavior. And you're going to vary your gestures and your words. An example is, Sarah, good job putting away your Legos the first time I asked, yay for you, and give her a big high five. So when you start to ignore misbehavior, just understand that when you begin to use the praise that works, the misbehavior may get worse because your child is used to you responding to negative behavior. It's you've been doing this certain dance together. They misbehave, you respond. They misbehave, you respond. Now you're withholding that response and they may escalate the behavior to get a response. And you have to quickly be giving them those 20 minutes a day of uninterrupted positive behavior. You need to quickly move in and give the positive the praise that works for the opposite of the misbehaviors, but expect it to get worse for a little while if you've been doing a lot of nagging and responding to misbehavior. Was there a question, Shruti, that you had for me? I just have a couple of more things to cover.
Right now, I don't have any questions, Ruth.
Okay, great.
We'll let you know again.
So this is my daughter actually with her daughter and the baby. My daughter was the 15-year-old with the incredible challenging teenager. She actually, just so you all know, this daughter actually said to me after her first baby was born, the little girl, she said, Mom, did you love me as much when I was a teenager as I loved the baby? And I said, Annie, you love your child more and more. I loved you more and more. And she said, I'm really, really sorry. So I want to give you all, I want to give you all a special note. And here they are, they're doing face painting. Being playful enhances learning in children and enhances cooperation. During these times, during the pandemic, everyone is so stressed and so worried and so overwhelmed with working at home. It can be easy to forget to be playful with your kids, but it really helps everyone relax. Pretending with your kids, having a silly voice or doing dancing or marching or just saying simple songs and rhymes. My daughter always had a potty song with her daughter. They had a potty song they sang. She had a bottle of bubbles in the bathroom that they did together. If it's time to go in for the shower, you can do a parade to the shower with the bubbles. Remember to smile, share your excitement, and be silly. Play the fool. If you want your 2-year-old to get dressed, you can say, where do your pants go? Do your pants go on your head? And the 2-year-old will go, no, they go on my legs. And you can use stuffed animals to, start a new transition. Be silly and enjoy your kids during this time. Playfulness is a magic formula when it comes to cooperation. So with positive discipline, avoid harsh punishment, use mild consequences only when necessary. Ignore negative behavior to the best of your ability. Try to build in those 20 minutes of special positive time. Identify 1 or 2 misbehaviors you want to change and use the praise that works every time. And be playful when trying to make transitions, especially. There's my little grandson that my granddaughter kind of pushes over when he's sitting up. Don't worry too much about compliance. Manage your emotions, apply your meditation practices. Focus on your connection with your child in all those ways we described. You can start with 1 or 2 if you're not doing them. Avoid perfectionism. Apply the positive discipline practices consistently and be playful. Any questions or comments, or does somebody want to declare your first action step? If you say it out loud, you're going to be more likely to do it. And I want to let you know a little bit about Peace at Home Parenting before we go. But were there any last questions, Shruti?
So this is the, are you done with the presentation, Ruth?
Yes, but I just want to tell you all about Peace at Home Parenting. I have one more slide, but if you have any more questions, let me know.
Yeah. Right now, I don't have any questions. We'll discuss at the end of the session. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. I just want to let you all know.
5 minutes to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to let you all know that Peace at Home Parenting is a program I created because we realized that I was traveling all over the state of Connecticut to teach parenting, but now we realized that there were parents all over the country that needed support. So I've gathered 13 other amazing specialists in parenting, and we created this company called Peace at Home Parenting. Our website is peaceathomeparenting.com. You can like us on our Facebook page, Peace at Home Parenting. And if you take any of our classes, you're going to be invited to our private group. It's over 800 parents and professionals, and people post questions and get answers and get a lot of support. I learn things from parents. I learn things from the other professionals. All of our 13 other teachers answer questions in that private group. If you take our classes, you're welcome to join. And when you go to our website, you'll see that we have live classes just like this. We have recorded classes. I do a free monthly question and answer session. I'll come on once a month. You can buy a family subscription. You can talk to me or any of our coaches in a personal session. And if you work for a large company, I hope you'll bring our name to your wellness department. CVS here in the United States and several other companies have subscriptions to Peace at Home Parenting. If you work for CVS, you have a free subscription to Peace at Home Parenting, and many other companies do too. Email us at info@peaceathomeparenting.com. I'm Ruth Freeman. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder here. And we'll be happy to answer your questions or guide you to some of our classes if you can't find them on the website. So, Shruti, any last comments or questions?
Yes, Ruth. I had a question from the viewer. When kids raised in one culture, how can we make them understand that our culture is different from others in this country?
This question always makes me almost tear up because I've seen so many children lose their culture, and I've seen so many parents in pain about this, and the value of our cultures are so important. We're learning this more and more. So this is about practice. It's not about conversation as much as practice. So, I can tell you because I have a biological daughter. I have a foster son who adopted us. He was only with us for 6 months, but he stayed with us and he adopted us as an adult, and we are the grandparents to his grandchildren. And I have a stepson who has 3 children. So I've seen these 3 children plus close children in my life grow up. And what I've seen is that no matter how difficult they were as teenagers or even as young children, in many ways, they've adopted a lot of our practices. So, for example, in our family, before a meal, we all held hands and we said one thing we were grateful for about that day. And when the kids were, sometimes the kids would not want to do it or they would pass. And when they were teenagers, they might have been embarrassed when their friends came over, but we always did it. It was a custom. It was a practice. And then when the kids grew up, I saw that they did it with their kids. And even though they might have complained about it. So what I'm saying is the way you live your life and your culture is what's important. And if you have practices that you do them. The kids don't come, they do come, they complain, whatever. Do your practice, do your culture. Talk about what's important about your culture to your kids, and tell stories about your ancestors. Telling stories about previous generations, especially how they overcame obstacles, actually reduces anxiety in kids. After 9/11, they did a little research and they found that kids who knew the stories of their ancestors and knew the ways their ancestors overcame obstacles actually were less anxious about the 9/11 event. So telling stories, letting them know what's important to you, teaching them, reading books together, doing the practices, and just stay centered. And the chances are by the time they're adults, you'll see a lot of that manifested. You don't have to argue with them and convince them. Just believe in your practices. And at the same time, be interested and curious about how it feels to them to go out in the world and have traditional culture and have the new culture, and be very attuned to the stress it causes inside of them around culture, and just be tuned into that.
Yeah, that was a great answer, Ruth. And this is like great session today. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Hope this session gives a deep understanding for the parents and conscious living for the of all parents and also others too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I loved your questions and I appreciate having such a wonderful host. Thank you very much. And thank you to Madhu for bringing me on. I appreciated being here.
Thank you, Ruth. What a beautiful session by the Ruth. So viewers, I hope we had a great session today. We will meet next week with another great speaker. Thank you for watching, guys. And please do watch and subscribe to our channel. And do click on the bell icon for the notifications.